This marae has seen lots of robust, heard many disagreeable things, and really a Māoridom that sensitive and weak that they can't engage in a full-on debate or hear what David Seymour's got to say. I think it's an indictment. Well, I think it's a deeper point. What's the point of the pōwhiri? I've got severe reservations about the whole architecture of Waitangi Day. Well, let's face it, the pōwhiri is no longer a welcome ceremony. It's an opportunity to tally up the list of woes and grievances. And in a democracy, no one can stop that from happening, but it should not be the dominant feature of a Māori welcome ceremony. The young men doing the wero, they're highly passionate, and I know many of them. I know their whānau really well. But there's an unhelpful virus that's crept into a lot of our Māori welcome ceremonies, and they're starting to bark and they're starting to yell in the wero. That is never ever the culture. And if you want to change the tikanga, then be careful what the response is, because when I grew up, when the welcome ceremony was conducted and you had the challenge, we always brought 2 or 3 runners with us. And those runners chased the person doing the wero, and if they could catch them, they rubbed their head in horse shit. Sadly, I didn't bring a bag of horse shit with me today. Yeah. In relation to the movement of the microphone around the marae, look, I understand it's theatre, but let's be honest with each other. The Tai Tokera is not that weak that it can't tolerate a speech full of things that obviously were designed to rile the crowd, but switching the microphone off, in all honesty, is not going to switch the voice off.
With your comments about how the festivities is changing, are you reconsidering whether you're on the first?
Well, Winston and I, because of our whakapapa, we're always going to be here. But I mean, I put it to you, there's something seriously awry about the architecture of the whole day. And this is something that I'm taking to our caucus, and to identify in what way can we ensure that future pōwhiri don't turn into a circus. I mean, really, chasing the microphone around hardly elevates the pōwhiri to the way in which we were brought up to believe in. Oh, well, obviously this is an independent body, but I just gave them $10 million. So if you want to take the money, you take the responsibility of looking after your manuhiri.
You were part of
There's an expectation that when the manuhiri come to an area like this, they're not going to come back if they're mistreated, and they don't need to come back.
You were part of the group in 2018 that moved it away from Titi Marae and up here, thinking it would be a more politically neutral space. Do you feel like that has now changed?
Yeah, well, we did support Pita Paraone moving it up here. But look, I blame the current trustees for allowing the issue to become a circus. They should. If you want a circus, we need to move it back down to the bottom marae. I'll know this from me. Every dollar that we allocate to ensuring that we look after this beautiful site imposes an obligation on the organisers to look after visitors. No, I don't think it is. So, look over there. Behind us, in Jacinda's time, we built that fantastic testimony to the Māori Battalion. We have just allocated a $10 million fund to ensuring that the meeting house and the other facilities here are fit for purpose. Today, the pōwhiri was not fit for purpose. Yeah, so in the 1980s, as I said, I was one of the lads up on the tree and we were watching and doing our own protests, but this is not the 1980s. And I suppose I find it strangely ironic and quite heavy that 40 years later there's a new generation wanting to emulate what we did. Our legacy was the Treaty of Waitangi settlement process. Our legacy was picked up as we worked with Sir Graham Latimer and others. Yeah, I'll be very specific here. The Waitangi Trust have received $10 million from our government to address infrastructure. And that money for that infrastructure is designed to ensure that this place can be a great place of hospitality. What's the point? If they don't buck their ideas up, well, obviously the money's already been allocated, but if they don't buck their ideas up, don't look to central government to fund an organisation that's independent and can't raise enough revenue to look after itself.
Would you call it in another country if a government demanded unwavering support for a government grant money? Would you call it right?
No, I'm a pretty upfront guy. What is the point of supporting the infrastructure here at this site if we're going to have a circus take place on the very site where parliamentarians have to chase the microphone around on the marae?
Is that saying things like poison, not inviting?
So we've got 364 days to make our points about David Seymour. So today, on the single day that's our founding and our national day, the takeaway is a stoush between David Seymour and the Pai, where the Pai enabled the microphone to grow wheels and move around like some sort of demonic force on the marae.
As far as the expectations go, are you referencing the money that has already been committed, as in there will be expectations on the use of that, if they can use that to be able to...
Yeah, so obviously any money subject...
Or is it
Yeah.
on future...
No, well, I don't know if they've got a future grant. I've certainly lost my zest in pushing any future grants forward unless they buck their ideas up and look after their manuhiri. Look, tikanga is nowadays tikanga is a political instrument. I had my say at Tariana's mate, and today I said to our rangatahi doing the wero, do not start shouting and do not start bellowing in your wero. That is not the right. That is not the tikanga. Nā māku mea tu kia tātou e tama tēnā kupu ko te tikanga. Kaua rau e tukua kia tinihi ai mo ngā take tōrangapū. Waiho, pēnā hihana koe kia whakapanongi ai, whakaritea mai he piki wānanga. Mā roto i te wānanga tātou ka whakapūmauti ai e tahi tikanga hau. Ka ue waiho mā ngā hau o te ao tōrangapū tahi ka tinihi te tikanga. E hare ngā mahi tutua noheo nei. Mākua mea tu kia tātou. E rā momo mahi, mākua mea tu kia tātou a Ngāpuhi, me Aotearoa whānui. Kōrero tiana ko te manaakitanga. Kei he te manaakitanga i roto i e rā momo tikanga. Take tēnā oku. Look, I was tempted to say to the people who turned their back on me, today you turn your back on me, tomorrow you'll have your hand out through your iwi for money. But that would have, I didn't need to worsen the situation.
Minister, you've wrapped this up, but you've got other ministers.
Yeah, well, Winston will own his own kōrero, but no, I thought my contribution was very peaceful and calm, and I gave people some of the history of the Ngāpuhi, but it's really important that we maintain a certain majesty about this process, and if we're not going to, people aren't going to come back.
Couldn't you argue that there's been a moment of magnificent pageantry, non-violent pageantry, and that's very different from what used to happen on the lower marae?
Yeah, look, the reason that we brought it up here was to ensure that the tikanga was upheld. And today someone dropped the ball. I don't need to say anything else. Okay, see you fellas.
Same goes, are you still watching porn in the motel? Yeah, you know, boys.
Cody. Luis. Kia ora. Wow, beautiful day.
Great day. What did you make of how the people jumped?
Look, it's an absolutely exhilarating experience to be at Waitangi at any time of the year, but particularly on this day. And the pōwhiri was undertaken in accordance with the tikanga of Ngāpuhi.
What did you make of them turning the back the microphone?
Well, I'll go ahead.
Well, I think it was disappointing. Ultimately, we came to listen and have an exchange of views, but ultimately it's up for the host how to organise that. But, I found it disappointing.
Look, we received the tono to come and have a respectful dialogue and kōrero between us all, and we've done that, and we've come in and undertaken that on behalf of Te Pāti Kāhurangi National Party.
Do you think there were elements of today that were quite similar to what it used to be like down in Tete, and perhaps that things have digressed a little bit here?
Well, look, we just acknowledge that the tikanga of Ngāpuhi is undertaken in the fashion that is Ngāpuhi to run the pōwhiri. We've come and brought our whakaaro, had that dialogue, and looking forward to the whakanoa or the kai.
Do you have any empathy for the actions that they could have given that they say they feel?
Yeah, of course. But ultimately, we have an elected party, we have a coalition agreement, we have a bill that's being debated, and words to express that. And, I think it's important that we all should be able to express those views and to be heard and listened to and to be challenged. And what we see on a day like this is there's always a very strong challenge and there's always an opportunity to exchange views. So, I found that disappointing. But, it's always it's a unique blend coming to Waitangi of confrontation and also an exchange of views, and then the extraordinary harmony of the singing and the coming together at the end in peace. And so, we're thinking about our National Day tomorrow and the opportunity that we have to celebrate what we have in this country and also the challenges that we face. And so this week is always that unique blend of those things.
Is the financial support of your government contingent on Māori towing the line?
No, we are absolutely focused on getting this economy back on track, and that will involve quite a number of Māori-led or partnered projects, as you've seen throughout Schedule 2. But it's not just about the dollars, it's also about things like education, and Minister Stanford and others have been up here launching te reo Māori resources out of Pangaru, infrastructure, literacy and numeracy. It's not just one thing, it's many, many things.
Shane Jones just said that you guys gave them $10 million, so they shouldn't act like that.
Well, okay, Shane Jones tōna kōrero. Shane has his own interpretations and views, and I'm certainly not going to try and get into the brain of Shane Jones. But what I will say is that we're very committed to supporting the cultural institutions like Waitangi, like Ratana, like Parehaka, and... Well, no, that's what I'm saying. We leave our views to Shane, and we're not getting into Shane's either his korokoro or his hinengaro. We're really focused on supporting efforts throughout the country through the Regional Infrastructure Fund and other things that we think will help the economy get moving.
Look, Shane Jones can take responsibility for his own comments. Obviously, as a government, we continue to engage right across the board. And we expect robust discussions, and we expect differences of views. But, we don't stand back and just say and accept the idea that somehow this is a government that is in any way negative towards Māori. We are focused on improving the outcomes for Māori everywhere. And we don't take one step back on that. Pardon? Well, he can explain all that.
A member of your government and someone related to dishing out money for improved infrastructure projects was saying that he is reconsidering future investments in this area because of what has happened here. As representatives of that same government, where do you stand on that?
Well, we don't, as a government, we don't stop funding people because they disagree with us. That's not how it works. Shane can explain his sentiments, and I quite understand. It's always an emotional experience up here. And it's a robust environment, but in terms of funding and things that I'm responsible for and justice, it's not about the arguments, it's about getting things done. That's what we're focused on. We want to see results.
From the member from Northland on that, how do you feel about government money tap being turned off just by Shane Jones on a whim?
Well, Shane's got his own views and comments. I'm going to keep working hard for the people of Northland advocating for the projects that we just really done up here, which will benefit everybody.
Can you say that you won't let that happen?
Well, I'm not a member of the cabinet, so I can't say that. But what I am the advocate for Northland, and I will advocate strongly for all the projects that we need done up here, which are plenty, starting with the 4-lane highway.
That's
Come
right.
on, come on.
Okay.
Next question.
Anything else?
Next part, right? We're getting hungry. Ana. O kei te premia tōna ke kōwhiringa rātaka, me te mea nei kua ātarangona e haere ana ia ki ōnuku, ki reira hoki I tāia mai ngā moko o Ngaitahu ki te tiriti o Waitangi, ka pai hoki te whakatairanga I tō tātou tiriti, puta no I te motu. Engari, e tino tautoko ana tō mātou pāti kahurangi I te anga whakamua o te huini nui I konei, tai atu ki te anga whakamua o te whakataunga tiriti tārea te wā. Okay, kei a rātou hoki o rātou tikanga, me te mea nei kua whakahoki mātou I te tono, kia tai ora mai, kia tai mihi whakaute atu ki te haukainga, kei te ora te tinana, kei te ora hoki te wairua o tēnei pāti.
Today was an opportunity to listen. What was the message that you've taken away today?
There continues to be an absolute commitment to Te Tiriti o Waitangi, the Treaty of Waitangi, and the expectation is that we will continue to do that. And the many various mahi and activities that we're undertaking, we believe, will help implement Te Tiriti o Waitangi and help carry that through. There's a lot of good things going up here in the north, and we look forward to supporting them further, such as the Te Hiku Accord that Minister Upson leads, such as the education mahi that Minister Stanford leads, and of course the mahi that Minister Goldsmith's undertaking for the Ngāpui settlement, starting with Korori Popa out there next to the stone store in Kirikiri.
Okay, no, we're going to leave on.
Do you think you've been able to allay any of the concern among people today?
We're taking action. Kia ora tātou. Thank you. What's that?
No, keep going.
Just wondered if I could grab you for a second.
Can I catch you a bit later?
Stop US funding to the WHO. And a short time ago, Mr. Trump also signed a new order that ends US engagement with the UN Human Rights Council and continues a halt on funding for the Palestinian Relief Agency run by the UN. Fears this week of a major trade war sparked by US tariffs have eased somewhat, with pledges by Canada and Mexico easing tensions with their neighbour. But a row between the US and China is escalating. Beijing is retaliating on tariffs and accusing the US of breaking international rules. Here's the BBC's World Business reporter, David Waddell.
Just weeks ago, President Trump was flagging widespread tariffs, including levies of up to 100% on imports from China. In the end, those tariffs amount to 10%, much less than feared. Donald Trump says the tariffs are a response to trade deficits, to a perceived unfairness in the balance of trade. They're also an effort to curb the flow of the opioid fentanyl. His administration says chemicals used to make the drug come from China. And here's the Chinese response.
Earlier
it was announced on Chinese state television that, from next Monday, additional tariffs would be imposed on certain US imports, specifically a 15% tariff on coal and LNG, and a 10% tariff on crude oil, agricultural machinery, large displacement vehicles and pickup trucks. Other steps Beijing has taken in response to the Trump administration's new tariffs, including adding more US companies to its blacklist unreliable entity list. China's also complained to the World Trade Organization, accusing the US of breaking international rules. And on the United States opioid problem, Beijing has previously said that America's fentanyl crisis was its own issue. Over 74,000 Americans died in 2023 after taking drug mixtures containing fentanyl, according to the US Centers for Disease Control. And the issue became a focus of Donald Trump's challenge to both Canada and Mexico, blaming both countries for allowing...
I think. So Hikutu, one of my hapu mokopuna from my hapu up here, yeah. Yeah, rukuwais. Yeah. Is that all of us? Cool. Ka pai. Kia ora koutou katoa. Today the pōwhiri changed on the fly, as many of you would have seen, and I was prepared to deliver the speech for the Green Party. That changed, and we no longer had any kōrero from the maho. So I would like to just express some of the sentiment that I was going to speak about if the maho was going to be given an opportunity. The first thing I want to uphold is that Ngāpuhi did not cede sovereignty. And I am a daughter of the North. I am Ngāpuhi. And the Greens are here to uphold that Ngāpuhi maintains its mana motuhake, that ngā hapu o Ngāpuhi maintain their mana motuhake. And that is the kaupapa and the whole point why Te Pāti Kākariki returns every year, because Te Tiriti underpins who we are. Te Tiriti was always supposed to be about the promise of peoples to take the best possible care of each other. Our tupuna, when they signed, they understood the importance of taking care of each other and our whenua. We know that there is no reason why our ancestors would have signed up to anything that removed their mana, that took away their power, that took away their obligations as kaitiaki to care for our mokopuna and to protect our whenua. We know that across the country, people and communities are streaks ahead of government and are showing us what kotahitanga looks like. Whether it's working together to protect our taiao, to restore our rivers and our oceans, to protect our wetlands, to feed the people, to manaaki our communities, to create community gardens. All over the country, our communities are working together. Tangata tiriti, tangata whenua, tangata moana, tangata tauiwi. People of all walks of life, those and many more who showed up to the hikoe at the end of the year to send a clear message. They are telling government, we know that Te Tiriti depends on us having strong relationships across communities. They are saying we want this government to end the harmful, divisive rhetoric that has been allowed to happen right now, where 185 years of oppression towards Māori, we're taking our land off us, land that we have been kaitiaki for centuries. We're diminishing our own reo in schools is supposed to look like equality. There is a harmful, divisive conversation taking place right now where the government is enabling this disinformation, these absolute lies to target Māori with anti-Māori rhetoric. And the government needs to show leadership. The Prime Minister needs to show leadership to shut that kōrero down. It threatens to harm the centuries of work and relationship building that has been happening across communities, where people understand that Te Tiriti is a positive vision for all of us. Decades now, decades and generations of work to come together to realise that Te Tiriti protects Aotearoa for everyone. What is happening in this government as well is the exploitation and any window to sell our country off, to sell our taonga off to private interests, to overseas interests. That goes completely against what Te Tiriti upholds. That is an example of how Te Tiriti protects Aotearoa for everyone. So we call on the Prime Minister to actually show some leadership and end the kōrero that is harmful, racist and divisive. The kōrero that is being put out there about so-called privileges. It's like saying that the violence and the beating that my grandmother took for speaking her own reo, her own language in school, was just called an education. That is the sort of harmful, violent rhetoric that this government and the Prime Minister is allowing to happen, and then he doesn't even have the guts to turn up here and face that. And the people here sent a clear message. They turned their backs to the politicians when the politicians who are driving that harmful kōrero were speaking. They turned their backs. The microphone was removed from politicians who are putting out that harmful, hateful, racist rhetoric. They are sending a clear message, we are better than that. And Te Pāti Kākariki is here because we know that Te Tiriti and the beauty that it offers underpins the Constitution of Aotearoa, as it underpins the Constitution of Te Pāti Kākariki, I've been out of the game for a little bit, whānau. My voice has been missing, but it's here now. And I have returned to support the incredible mahi that all of my colleagues have been doing for all of these months. And I am here to say, ka ti te kōrero teka. Stop the kōrero that is hateful. Whakamana I te tiriti, uphold te tiriti as a beautiful relationship-based way of working in Aotearoa. It is working, it is doing good, and we come here to front up as politicians to the people, to Ngāpuhi, to te whare runanga, and the Greens will continue to do that because we can see it offers us hope. Kia ora tātou, happy to take questions.
What was the decision, or why was the decision made to change the tikanga and not have speeches in the maha?
That is for the haukainga to speak to. And as things happens on the run, I am not at all going to second guess what is behind their rationale. It certainly was getting a little bit hot out there, but wera. So those decisions are up to the haukainga. The Greens will always just follow suit.
Do you support Aotearoa taking away the microphone?
I support the people sending a clear sign that they do not tolerate the hateful rhetoric. The Greens will always support the haukainga, the grassroots people who feel like they have been run roughshod for this beautiful place to be turned into and targeted as a site of racist rhetoric. I support the people showing politicians they will not put up with that. Yes, because where is Tama's support for the mana motuhake of ngā hapu o Aotearoa? That is really what every political party should be bringing here today. Anything less than that is not what the people are asking for, is not what Te Tiriti is about.
Do you think that everyone who came here today had an opportunity to say what they wanted to say?
I wouldn't know who was planning or who was wanting to have an opportunity to say what. But I think what is clear is that the people felt so strong about taking an opportunity to send a message. And we received that message loud and clear. They will not tolerate the hateful kōrero.
Shane Jones said in response to people turning their backs on him and other members of his government that he will think twice before giving any more funding to this place, essentially back up their ideas or don't expect to see more grants.
What an absolute abuse of power and privilege. What an absolute whack in the face for democracy. Showing their true colours, showing his true colours. If anything, this place that manaakis the tens and tens of thousands of people every year actually needs more funding and more support to be able to do this mahi. Because it's here for everyone. It's here for the nation. So what an absolute, total abuse of power, actually.
Is it something that you would expect Prime Minister reluctant to be involved in? One of his ministers is
yes,
talking about
but
taking away funding
actually,
they change.
Actually, you know, Tama had more mana than the Prime Minister today turning up here and fronting. And the Prime Minister really needs to show his power and his mana, his authority to actually be a Prime Minister and keep his mates in line.
Is that something that is acceptable for a minister to say, or do you think that
No, it's not. No, it's not at all. There's been that's not the way that decisions are supposed to be made. It's an absolute abuse of power, and it's also designed to rough things up. It's designed to stir things up. Gosh, the people here, they've got it sussed far more than the government. They really do. They understand that manaaki and us caring for each other is what we should all be focusing on.
Did the Prime Minister remove Shane Jones as a minister?
That's for the Prime Minister to determine. All I can see sitting up there on the maho is he's not in control of his friends.
What do you make of Te Pāti Māori's policy to implement an independent commissioner for Te Tiriti Waitangi?
More broadly, the Greens have always understood the call for constitutional change. What does that mean? It means actually putting some teeth into our legislation to uphold mana motuhake. It means actually having a constitutional understanding of the importance of Te Tiriti across our policies and laws, and the Greens have always supported that. Other questions? The blankets, plakatihi. Well, I'm happy to have a go. These were gifted to us just before the pōwhiri from the haukainga, from Ngāpuhi. Toitu Te Tiriti is on my one. It's actually a real honour that as co-leaders for Te Pāti Kākariki, we were afforded the honour from the haukainga of affirming, the haukainga basically are affirming our stand as Te Pāti Kākariki and the whakamana of Te Tiriti. So quite an honour. Also, it should be understood for the significance it has in that some actions were shown today towards politicians who are driving hateful rhetoric, and the point of difference for Te Pāti Kākariki and being welcomed in this way is a really important one.
Was the Green Party a young party to receive?
No, you'll have to ask other parties about that. All I understand is that this was something that was consciously given as koha to us, and we're very honoured to have worn it. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time.
Intimate songwriting. Her latest album, Now in a Minute, was released towards the end of last year. She joins me now from Christchurch, where her tour kicks off on Friday. Hi there, Susan.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. Welcome to New Zealand.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Have you been to this part of the world before?
I haven't actually, not for long. I did have the pleasure of playing a WOMAD festival many years ago with another Irish artist called Sharon Shannon. I was guesting with her as a trumpeter and a vocalist. But this is my first time to be here for a little bit longer. So it's great. It's great to get to see a bit of the islands this time.
Yeah, great. And well, I guess music has taken you around the world. I was reading about some of the people who you've performed with, supported, and alongside. You've had a pretty exciting couple of years.
Yeah, it's been beautiful. It's something that I really think about a lot lately. Is, you know, before we had buildings and microphones and lights, we have always just across the world shared stories, shared music. It's part of who we are as humans, and the fact that that's still going strong is really means it's something quite deep. It's something quite innate for us, you know.
How did you end up in music? How did that end up being your career? What led you to music?
I always just loved it. As a kid, I used to notice how much it would change the makeup of my being, that you could start playing, you could listen to a song, or you could hit the keys of a piano, and one of them might make you feel happy and the other one evokes a feeling of sadness or desperation. And I was put into a brass band very young. I had too much energy as a child, and there was no labels for it at the time, so they said, how do we get rid of this kid for 3 nights a week? So they successfully did that. And when I got a little bit older, then I started playing with the loop pedal, because obviously I loved to sing, but I couldn't sing and play the trumpet at the same time. So I started looping with the guitar and just trying to find unusual ways to, you know, get the songs across, or just build this wall of sound and then go from this big wall of sound to nothing all in the space of seconds. So I was really into contrast and dynamics. It's just, I always found the emotion of it was really what stood out to me.
I haven't been to Ireland, but it strikes me as a place where a lot of people are playing music and a lot of people are doing it very well and very affectingly. You must have to work super hard in order to stand out in that country as someone looking to make their name in music. Well,
I guess it's one of those things that everybody is welcome at the table in Ireland. Everybody is just encouraged to sing. And it's one of the things that happens. You might do a gig and maybe somebody's selling tickets. But actually it's later on at the after party that every single person is expected to kind of contribute, whether it's a poem or whether it's a song. And, I think there's room for everybody and their story, and everyone has one to share. So, I do absolutely love what I do and take it all over the place. And I always aspire to keep learning. But I have to say, we are always encouraged. It's just something that it's just in our everyday. And plus the weather is so shocking. We have nothing else to be doing on certain days.
I'm sure you're sick of talking about this, but I'm sure people will be interested to hear that you have some very high-profile fans, including U2's Bono, who said some lovely things about you. I'm sure you enjoy compliments from all sorts of people, but it must make an impact when you get a fan letter from Bono.
Well, it's nice, as you said, to get recognised from anybody within the music, or, you know, when someone comes up to you at the end of a gig and they might have a tear in their eye, or they might say, you know, this song brought me back to that moment, or this song reminded me. I love telling stories in between songs. I like to talk about the human condition, and I like to talk about innocence of childhood, or, you know, are we still that way, or is there a child alive inside of us? And I mean, I don't ramble too much, but I do like to mention these things. And when people resonate with what you're saying, you realise you're actually doing something more than just making noise. You're actually stirring thought. And when that happens, which it's, you know, it's I'm very glad to say that it seems to happen, you know, as a frequent thing. And that for me is why I just love this. It's why I'll never stop. It means you feel like you're part of something. You're part of a night, a meeting of hearts and minds, where people get to kind of share something that will never quite be the same again. It's a fingerprint. Every night is something unique.
Do you think of yourself as a live artist first and foremost, and secondly a recording artist, or do you not really think about the distinction?
Actually, they are very different things. It's interesting that you mentioned that, because recording is a whole art in itself, and I love to get into a studio and I play with production and sounds, but then I'm consistently told that to come and hear it live is nothing like the CDs, or nothing like the, you know, and I find that to be true of some people and not true of others. But yeah. I'm one of those. I don't care about what the CD says anymore. But I love it, and I'm proud of that work. But on the night, I'm just looking to what the room feels like, and if I want to play the song a bit faster or a little bit slower, if I want to play it in a different key, then what comes out is very much. I don't make set lists. I'm not there to sing what my latest album is. I'm there to play what feels like the best songs for the moment.
Does one room feel different to another?
Oh yeah, yes. This is a question I love. I could spend a whole day. But, you know, if you think about different buildings, halls, churches, venues, outside, inside, if you're playing outside, you're part of a symphony that's being added to by birds, by trees, by whispering trees. If you're playing inside, you've got reflections bouncing off walls, you have reverb, you have... I mean, if you even think the bone density in your hand is going to change the way you pluck a string on the guitar... Every single thing is unique to the moment and to the space that you are in and you're filling. So, as well as the moods of the people who've arrived, you know, they're going to change the space as well. So everybody's in it together.
I love that. Can you tell me something about your album Now in a Minute, which came out end of last year, your third album, I think?
Yeah, this is probably the most personal album so far. There's everything from, you know, there's love, there's loss, there's on the road, there's grief. What else do I sing about? A whole bunch of things. There's a song called Hail that I'm very proud of, that contains kind of the idea of different worlds, different portals that we maybe can come in and out of every day, sovereignty, our rights, what we should believe in, and what we praise in our own hearts. To praise something as simple and as profound as a breath, because that's all we really have at the end of the day, if we do have it. So I love some of the themes that I wrote about, and it was produced by this wonderful man in Cork called Christian Best. And if you go into his studio, he's basically, it's like the inside of the DeLorean, you know, on steroids everywhere. There's just shiny lights and all this vintage gear, and every day he just wanted to find the best way to evoke a sound and say, how do we make that weird and funky using old stuff? So there was a real process in making the album.
Lovely. You're here for a couple of weeks. What will you do when you're not performing?
I'll hopefully get up a couple of peaks, get to go on a few walks.
Great.
Yeah, I love the old walking. Yeah, it's good. It's good for the soul. There's some beautiful trails that I've noticed. I always enjoy eating and drinking, and so I'll do a bit of that. And just around the corner from this radio station, I went into the music shop and found this really cool, very outrageous pink guitar that I think I might have to add to the collection as well.
Oh, great, great.
Yeah. So I might. I think a New Zealand guitar might be on the list.
Wonderful.
As well.
Well, you're going to the usual places, but you're also returning to New Plymouth. We visited for WOMAD a few years ago. Palmerston North is there, the Globe, and up to the Turner Centre in Kerikeri, which is really special. Not many international artists get that far north, so I do hope you get to see a bit of Northland while you're there. Not that you've got too much time up there, but I'll give everyone the dates after your song. What will you play for us?
Thank you so much. I will play a song called Now You See It, which is a song about being in the present moment. It's toying with the idea of, if you had everlasting life, would you take it? Or is it possible to really sit in what we have right now?
Thank you.
I was a free bird sailing through the black and starry sky. I was a reverie onto the wide open spaces where a mind can be just a mind without a memory. Now you see it. Now it's gone. Now you've...
Is everybody all good to go?
What did you make of the tikanga here today and how everyone was received?
Well, I think David Seymour gave a deliberately inflammatory speech, and I think he got a response that was proportionate to that. He came here clearly to try and provoke a reaction, and he got a reaction. It's not the sort of thing I think responsible political leaders do. He set out right from the beginning of his speech to be inflammatory, and he was.
Shane Jones called that pōwhiri a circus. Do you think that's fair?
No, I don't think it was at all, actually. I think that those who engaged constructively got a fair hearing. Those who showed up to try and provoke a response for audiences elsewhere got the reaction that they deserved, frankly.
Do you support the protesters turning their backs on the government and the turning off of the microphone?
I think removing the microphone is probably something that there was a lot of debate on the other side about, and you saw that from the backwards and forwards from the microphone. But I think protest is legitimate, and there was a lot of protest, and I can understand where the anger around that comes from.
Shane Jones is so unhappy with what happened today. He's talked about future government grants, future money being held back from the National Trust if this is the tikanga that's going to happen from now. Is that appropriate?
I think it's utterly inappropriate. I think this government are trying to create a culture of fear where people are afraid to speak out against the government because they're worried that they're going to get that kind of knee-jerk response where their funding's going to be cut and they're basically going to be punished for having a different view. I don't think that's what responsible governments do, frankly. I think it's an abuse of power to threaten it.
Would you call it blackmail?
Well, it's certainly an abuse of power. Yes, and actually you could call it blackmail. And I think that that's an abuse of his position.
In terms of things having moved up here to be a little bit more politically neutral away from Tete, how do you think things are going up here in the last couple of years at the other treaty grounds? Do you feel as if it's still different, or do you think there perhaps is a similarity in terms of what used to happen at TT coming about?
I don't think you can necessarily draw a direct comparison because we've got a situation here now where you've got a government that's deliberately provocative and deliberately inflammatory. We worked very hard during the time we were in government to make Waitangi Day a day when New Zealanders could come together, a day when New Zealanders could celebrate the things we have in common, where we could remember our history and recognise all that's come before, and where we could look to the future together. Unfortunately, that's not what this government are doing.
Should David Seymour have even come today, do you think?
I think he should have come to listen. I think David Seymour thinks that a conversation about the treaty is one in which only he gets to speak. That's not a conversation.
Do you think the Prime Minister was scared to come today?
I think the Prime Minister should have shown some leadership and been here on a day when we should be talking about the future of the country. Not having the Prime Minister's voice in that conversation, I think, is a dereliction of the responsibilities that go with his office. I mean, I think everybody has the right to free speech. That doesn't mean you have a right to, well, that doesn't mean you should exercise your right to free speech in a way that's deliberately inflammatory in the way that he has been.
Do you think the Prime Minister is a coward?
I think Christopher Luxon should have been here. I'm not going to get into that kind of name calling. I don't think that's constructive.
You got your whole gang behind you. It looks sick. Like, I love the setup. Like, go talk some shit. Go.
Yeah, I'm sure. But look, I think Christopher Luxon should have been here. I think as Prime Minister, I think the country is looking for leadership. The country is looking for someone to bring us together. That goes with his job. He's not doing his job.
Were you speaking off the cuff, or where did your speech come from?
It was off the cuff. So, I mean, of course, I sat down beforehand and had a think about some of the points that I wanted to get across. But I've had a bit of help from a few friends. And my te reo Māori, as I've said before, it's a work in progress. But what I said when I first came here as Prime Minister 2 years ago was my pledge was I won't promise perfection, but I promise that each year I come back it will get a bit better. And hopefully I've lived up to that today.
And you also promised to come back every year. The Prime Minister did something like that last year. What do you think about those promises?
I think he should honour the promise. I think when you make a promise, you should live up to it.
Thank you.
Done? Very good.
Thanks, guys. And the guys in the back, you did great too.
Oh, go back to your comedy
It's
show.
really hard.
Roa is a student at Kapiti College, and she first spoke to us a wee while back when she was selected to appear on a Korean reality TV show. Since then, she has been very busy, and we thought we'd catch up on everything she's been doing. Aroa, hello.
Hi.
Nice to have you back on the show. Gosh, that was an exciting time in your life, heading to Korea. That was a positive experience for you in the end, wasn't it?
Oh, definitely. I have made some lifelong friends from that trip.
Okay, let me go through a bit of your CV since then. Champion equestrian.
Yeah. So basically, I rode for the Wellington region in something called showing, which is not as well known as show jumping or dressage. It's basically dressage in circles. So yeah, I competed in that in Dannevirke, and I was lucky enough to have won my national title. So yeah.
Gosh. Front person of the band Distill.
Yeah. So at school we have a band mentoring program, so I have a bunch of my friends and we got together and we have a band.
But you can't take away an idea, and ultimately this country will have something very much like the treaty principles bill, because the idea of equal rights is what the treaty promised, and it's also what allows all people to flourish. And so I'm very proud to be here today. Some people can turn their back, but they can't turn their back on the very real challenges that we face, giving every kid in this country equal rights and equal opportunity. I'm going to be spending Waitangi Day tomorrow opening a charter school, Kurahorua, that teaches in te reo Māori, actually the second this week that has opened. And if you look across the government's agenda, we are doing more to solve some of the challenges for all young New Zealanders, including young Māori, than perhaps some of the people who could only turn their back or take away microphones today. I just couldn't help but notice in a speech by Chris Hipkins, he said that coming together doesn't mean being the same. In fact, we should be together and celebrate all the faces of Aotearoa. Well, that sounds awfully like a speech I could give and a reason for Labour to support my bill and its values. I've got my own mic was the first thing I thought, and this is the truth. You know, you can try and suppress ideas, but actually people have an ability to decide what they think for themselves. No, someone else was filming me. I was just wearing the microphone. No, I think it's important that the message gets out, regardless of people trying to interfere with your ability. No, actually, I got an invitation from the Waitangi Trust Board and I accepted it. I've got many ancestries, and Ngāti Rehia seems to be the only one that says I have to be part of groupthink. Actually, if that's their view, that's a shame. But as I've said to Kippa, if I... Well, let me put it the other way. Do you think that people should be able to veto free speech and democracy by saying there might be trouble? I don't think that's right. You believe that it's okay to try and intimidate people out of freely communicating their ideas and making up their own mind? I don't.
Do you understand that some people feel like the free speech that you think you're expressing is threatening to them and inflammatory to them?
Well, I don't understand how they think it's threatening to them. Actually, ideas don't hurt. You know, it's trying to intimidate people, take away their ability to speak, threaten them with war dances. Some people might say that that was threatening, but I go along with it because that's tikanga. I think once people say you can't have an opinion because I feel upset, what you're really doing is bringing death to a democratic and free society.
Will you come back next year based on what?
Did you come here and give a deliberately inflammatory speech?
No, I came here and gave a speech that pointed out the real problems as I see them and the fact that this government is addressing them. And they are... Yeah, that's actually quoting Shakespeare. I hope that's not offensive to you. But pouring poison in one's ear is a quote from Hamlet about putting mistruths in people's minds, and I believe that's what people have done about my bill.
Well, a lot of people are saying that's what you're doing. You're spreading misinformation.
Well, can you give me an example?
You're trying to say that Māori are causing divisions and racists when it seems like that's what you're doing.
No, I've never said that at all. I've said that...
Said that.
When?
Many times.
No.
I mean, on the trials. Don't lie to me.
No, I've never said that at all. That's why you're not a real journalist. These guys are. And what I have said consistently is the idea that the treaty formed a partnership between races. That is inherently divisive as an idea.
Will you come back next year based on what happened today?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, people get up, they do their war dance. You know, that is tikanga. I grew up with that in the north. But what is important is that we keep on talking as a country. Some people will disagree with what I said. That's absolutely fine.
Do you not think it's inflammatory to say in a dismissive way they'll get up and do their war dance?
Yeah, well, actually, it's not dismissive. That's what they do, and yet. I beg your pardon?
Why don't you call it a haka?
Well, we've got two languages in this country. One's English, one's Māori. In English, it's a war dance, and Māori, it's a haka. We can use either language. That's okay. Actually, that's not true. It's often been described as a war dance. So.
Did you always plan to come here and give a speech? I mean, Chris Pickens has spoken about the conversation also being about listening and suggested that perhaps it would have been appropriate for you to come today and listen, given that you do have a platform and your views that share your views on multiple occasions.
Well, he's the leader of the opposition in the Parliament of New Zealand. He's been the Prime Minister of New Zealand. He has a platform too, but he still gave a speech, so I think we can dismiss that one straight away. But let's be honest, I've come here for 10 years. Every year I've been a Member of Parliament, apart from COVID. I've been up here. So to say that it's somehow strange for me to be here, that's not true. I'm always here. To say that giving a speech is strange, that's not true. I always give a speech. And to say that listening to people is not consistent with giving a speech, I always give a speech and listen to people. So I think we can park all that.
Do you think it will have changed anyone's mind?
What I heard was a speech that claimed that we will forever be divided. Because some people arrived at a different time from others. I'm afraid I just don't agree with that. I heard people say that they have an inherent right that's different from others due to being descendants of Papatūānuku. Well, actually the truth is Māori came here on a boat, like most New Zealanders' ancestors came here on a boat. So I think we've got to be a bit realistic. I'm listening to what they're saying, but those were the two substantive things I heard in the speeches. I didn't hear people say, we disagree with your bill and we think the treaty should be a partnership, and so I didn't hear that. I was listening for it though.
Do you think the contribution today will have changed the minds of some people?
Yeah, I do, because I watched very carefully. While some people were turning their backs, others actually brought their chairs forward. Maybe that's because they respect tikanga, as I think everybody should, or maybe that's because they were interested in what I was going to say. We'll never know, maybe that's up to them, but nonetheless people can hear what I've said, and I think that's important. A mixed reaction. There will be people who will say, these are the values we need, practical problem solving to give every kid in this country equal rights and opportunities, which is what I've always believed in and all I've ever believed in. There'll be other people who will say, we're so committed to this notion of a nation divided into a partnership between races, what you're saying is offensive to me. I could have predicted that, but it's still worth having the debate. No, because one thing you learn from coming to Waitangi year after year is to expect the unexpected.
And was that
appropriate reaction? Was that okay? Do you have any issues with it? I asked because Shane Jones said that future funding for the Waitangi Treaty going to the trust here would be contingent on them backing up their ideas.
Well, I mean, first of all, I think it's important, and this is a mistake I believe has been made for many years at Waitangi, to group all people together and allow some people to have their prejudices fanned by saying that the behaviour of some people represents all. I think it's better to say the Trust Board actually is a fabulous organisation. If you haven't gone through this museum while you're here, I really hope you can. The grounds are immaculate. It's a little bit like Cornwall Park. It's a private organisation that does a very, very good job and have really done their best to make this a successful day. I don't think that it would be right to take a couple of people's actions and blame them for it. But yes, I think that, at some point, if you have to get in someone's face to that extent, maybe you don't have a very persuasive argument of your own.
So was
No, it's completely acceptable for him to make the comments, but I personally think it would be wrong to blame the good people on the Trust Board for the behaviour of some other people. Having said that, I'll just concede Shane may have better insight into the identities of the people and some of the causes of behaviour, and maybe that's what he was basing his comments on. I don't know that.
What actions in particular did you consider a breach of treaty?
Well, I think if you give a speech, then you need a space to be able to give it. You need to be able to have the same rights and the same microphone as everyone else. I think that was wrong. I think when you're in a place where someone has to get right up in your face, and you would have seen that, I just ask you, I don't really mind at the end of the day. I grew up in Northland, I'm used to this stuff, but actually, does it advance the debate? Are you going to persuade anyone that way, or you're just trying to... Oh, that was after the initial speech. It was a group of people that actually came across the area of the marae in order to, and specifically to me. And look, I just say to people, first of all, it doesn't really intimidate me. I'm kind of used to it from my life. But second of all, it's not really persuading anyone to your point of view either.
Minister, as at first were quite strong in saying they wouldn't support the bill, what was your reaction when they were giving that speech?
Well, they've said it before. The funny thing is, Margaret Thatcher once said, if you have to tell people you're a lady, you're not. And my question is why they feel the need to keep repeating it so often.
What did you make of the Prime Minister not being here today? Winston Peters has said it's not a big deal. Do you agree?
Yeah, look, I wrote a column in the Sunday Star Times in 2015, I think, saying I thought that the treaty should go on tour and actually go to different places, in part because the treaty itself was signed in many different places over several months, not just here on one day. And I guess Chris, in a sense, is doing something like that. And look, on the day itself, as I mentioned, I'm going to be down opening Tipene, a Māori language school on the site of the old St Stephen's.
You didn't feel unsupported by him today?
Beg your pardon?
You didn't feel unsupported by the Prime Minister not being here today?
No, I don't rely on Chris for support. I think sometimes he relies on me for support.
Why do you keep questioning the word of your coalition partners?
Beg your pardon?
Why do you keep questioning the word of your coalition partners? Both of them said they won't support the bill, and you keep saying, we'll see.
Yeah, well, I just wonder why, I just question why they say it so often, that's all.
But you're basically undermining the two people or the two parties that you're in government with.
Not really, I'm just saying that there's got to be a vote. They keep on saying they won't vote for it, but we'll see.
Do you not trust them?
No, I trust them. I just think this is a really important issue. And well, no, I just think sometimes people change their minds. And I actually think it's a strength, not a weakness to do so.
Minister,
yeah.
What do you make of the argument that Christopher Luxon should be here today and then he could go off tomorrow to wherever he wanted to go in the country?
Well, again, I guess his diary is ultimately up to him. I wasn't part of a discussion about where he would go. What I would say is that he's made a choice, and I think people should respect his choice. In fact, I think generally we should just be a bit more open and tolerant to different people's choices. Well, first of all, I'm interested in ideas and having the best ideas and policies for this country to be a prosperous society. So neither the hikoi nor any protest today has given a countervailing idea or a competing idea to my bill, or said, no, actually we think that New Zealand should be a partnership between races, like the Court of Appeal said, and Dame Claudia Orange likes to say, and Jacinda Ardern said, we want a partnership between races, we don't like your bill. If someone can explain to me a good reason for that, then I'm all over it, but I'm not hearing that from a protester or a hikoi. The second thing is, and so you had a second question about the relationship. Yeah, I am, but I would argue that over the last decade we have increasingly introduced policies which say that you have a different role in our society based on your ancestry. Now, I long warned, the problem with the government saying that to people continuously is that some of them may come to believe it, and I believe that that's exactly where we've got to. That's why our government promotes need not race, and actually solving the real problems of how do you get a house, how do you get a house, how do you get education, how do you actually get some sense of hope in your life. That's what will improve the relationship for all New Zealanders, not just Māori.
You don't really believe this, though. Like, you're saying I'm not a real journalist, but even I can see through this bullshit. Like, you're spinning shit. You've started a debate.
You know, it's worse than that. You're not even a real comedian.
Okay, well, that's fair.
But I'm getting it. I'm getting it.
For a second, I feel like you're setting the narrative and then saying everyone who argues with you is an idiot. When really people have been very clear about their arguments, and you're being dismissive because you want to control the narrative, and you're not doing it for ideas. You're for asset sales, and creating division to win political votes. That's what I feel.
You know, when I grew up as a kid in this country, comedians were funny, they were clever, they were witty. What's gone wrong?
I think I'm all right.
Yeah, I know. You're the only person who thinks that.
Politicians were a bit more honest.
Simon, you got a serious question? I mean, it's so bad. I got to get Simon to ask you a question. No? You're actually. I tell you one thing, Guy. You're giving me a new appreciation of some of these folks.
Okay, that's good.
You mentioned at the start of the stand-up today that across government speaking, you think your party is probably doing more for young Māori than the others. You mentioned education in particular, going down to open international Māori. There is criticism of the charter schools, the way they've started up, that they actually have far smaller roles and they're not working, not about to work, in anything like the level you suggested to come.
Well, first of all, I said we've got budget for 15 and we will open 15. It's a mistake sometimes to open a whole lot of schools all at once. It's sometimes smarter to really do your due diligence, and if we did it the other way, people will probably criticise us for that too. Then people will criticise the roles. Well, actually, you know, the impetus on these schools is to get more students. That's how they get more funding. Because they get funded per student. If you look at, say, Busy, their model, and they've built this up in Australia, they typically double their role every 6 months, so you don't need many years before you've got a school that might have started at 30 or 40, but suddenly is in the several hundreds. Beg your pardon? Well, I've never actually given numbers before, so it's impossible for that contradiction to be real. So, yeah. I almost want to go back to Guy Williams. Yes.
Are you proud to be Māori?
I'm proud of all of my ancestry. I'm proud to be part Scots, I'm proud to be English, and I'm proud to be Māori. My question is, why wouldn't you ask why am I proud of all my ancestry?
Yeah, but you've been received like the same treatment since last year. We saw, people talking over you during your speech, and the same thing this year. You're still proud of ancestry?
Yeah, but people do that in Parliament. They don't start asking what their ancestry is and attacking them for their race. I mean, people behave the way they choose to behave. When you start judging them and saying that behaviour is a reflection on their ethnicity, that's what I call racism.
You saw members of your own iwi today turn their backs on you. How did that make you feel as Māori?
Well, it's like that in any family. Not everyone that's related to you always agrees with you. It'd be worrying if they did. But at the end of the day, as I said to Kip Munro, mate, that wasn't too bad, was it? And he had to admit it wasn't the end of the world.
So, given your characterisation there of racism, would you describe the reception that you got here as racist?
No, I think it's a contest of ideas. When you say that a person has to subscribe to a certain idea because of their race, I think that's racist.
Just on that, you've kind of brushed off the challenges. You said, you didn't feel intimidated by the response that you received. Did you feel any kind of emotional response as someone who is from here?
No, most of the time I'm just trying to make sure we get the tikanga right. I mean, it's interesting, Jerry as Speaker was supposed to be picking up all of the take, but it's pretty clear that, as a crowd favourite, they wanted me to pick one up. So I eventually responded to that challenge.
Why did you need a bodyguard?
Beg your pardon?
Why did you need a bodyguard?
Well, I didn't, and I don't actually talk about... Beg your pardon? I don't think he's got any qualifications in that area.
Why did he have to come out with you?
He didn't have to, it was his choice. I wasn't really thinking about Shane. I do sometimes think about Shane, just for the record, but I wasn't thinking about Shane then.
Why can you refer to tikanga and take and te reo Māori, but you can't refer to haka and te reo Māori?
Well, in answer to your last question, I referred to war dance as a haka and as a war dance, and a haka as a war dance. I mean, we have two languages, they're interchangeable.
Why don't you also use protocol, say, when you talk about tikanga?
Everyone has a different level of understanding. I don't claim to be an expert, but I do my best, and maybe if we, we'll try to be a little bit more positive instead of gotcha, we could all get somewhere.
Do you think people understand haka?
Beg your pardon?
Do you think most New Zealanders understand haka?
I'd say most New Zealanders would understand the word haka, yeah.
Māori academics and many experts in constitutional change say you've actually helped educate New Zealanders in when you say
Well, I'm not surprised. One of the things I've said is that my bill will actually enhance the mana of the treaty. You've got to remember what I've done as I've brought about a bill that is centred on this treaty's important, and so much so that Parliament needs to finish the job of defining its principles. I think that's a very positive thing. Beg your pardon? I think it's a bad thing for people to disagree. People have different views. It's when you try and intimidate them out of expressing their view, or say that their view somehow has to reflect everyone who's got the same ancestry. I mean, it's those sort of things I disagree with. Anyway, folks, have we got any new lines of questioning? Otherwise, I'll leave you all to it.
You're improving the mana of the treaty? That was a wild thing to say. Is it a joke?
Yeah, look, I don't think you're really... It's interesting. I would have thought a comedian would know what a joke was, but maybe that's where you're having trouble. All right, folks, well, it's been a lot of fun, and I've got a newfound appreciation for the real journalist. Thank you.